probably isn't going to be like any other productivity video that you've watched before. I have an unpopular opinion. Productivity isn't about getting more done. Productivity means getting the important things done. Working moms juggle more, put out more fires, and carry more mental load than anybody else. I don't think there's a single demographic that needs this mindset shift on productivity more. For example, if you're a brand new mom, productivity might mean keeping the baby fed and with a clean bum, and maybe even keeping up on the laundry enough that there's not fresh poop on the onesie. No judgment here if your summer baby's running around in just a diaper. If that's the stage you're in, give yourself grace and know that you're enough. Nothing in this video is meant to make you feel less than. You might just be in a different stage, and that's okay. Or you could be in a season of big goals. Maybe you're in the trenches in your career or your business and just trying to juggle it all while meeting the needs of your family. Either way, start by setting the intention. I take issue with productivity for the sake of being productive. Like, I get it. It feels nice to be able to check those things off of your list. But when you really think about it, how many of those things are actually moving the needle and getting you closer to where you want to go? Sometimes we feel this outside pressure to be busy, but spinning our wheels is actually not going to help us to get to where we want to go and is more likely to just leave us feeling exhausted and burned out. We may be better off taking a step back and just reevaluating if the things on our to-do list are actually meaningful. Greg McKeown wrote one of my favorite self-help books, and he has this quote that says, "Just because I was invited didn't seem a good enough reason to attend." And I think that we can flip that around on a lot of the things that we're trying to take on. Like, just because someone asks you to do something may not be a good enough reason for you to accept that task. Next, simplify. I recommend asking yourself 2 questions. First, does this really need to be done? And second, does this really need to be done by me? There are opportunities everywhere. There are so many great things that we and our family can participate in, right? So many that we could not possibly take them all on if we wanted to, right? There's just not enough hours in a day. So recognizing that fact helps us to be more selective about the things that we actually want to pursue. Every time that we say yes to something, we are by default saying no to something else. So I recommend 2 more questions. Do I have the capacity to take this on? And will taking this on cause something that is more important to get bumped off of my priority list? Use intentional no's so that you can create a life of intentional yeses. Productivity as a procrastination technique. Sometimes we can even use productivity to procrastinate. Have you ever known that you needed to get something done, but you just kind of kept just adding other to-do list items on top of it so that you could like put it off a little longer? Sometimes we just need to take intentional action. And maybe you've done this before like me. You need to take intentional action, but you find yourself like over-researching to the point beyond when it's actually useful to be able to put off doing the thing that might be a little bit more challenging. If you find yourself in analysis paralysis, this next one might be helpful for you. Prioritize. One of the challenges of being productive as a mom is that sometimes you have so many things that need to get done that it can be hard when you actually have time to sit down and do something to know what to tackle. So it can be helpful to maybe like once a week, sit down and just step back and take an evaluation of what actually needs to get done and when those things need to get done. It's a lot easier to sit down and be productive if you have a plan before the time that you need to be productive actually gets here. The getting things done method. 4 lists. The mental load can be a lot as moms. It can be hard to keep track of everything that's going on with your family. And I know that if I don't write things down, there's no way that I'm going to remember it. Based on David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, I use 4 lists and a calendar to keep it all straight. So first, we have the next actions list. You might be thinking, okay, well, I already use a to-do list and that's like the same thing, right? But it's not. The next actions list goes into more detail about exactly the next thing that needs to happen to move things forward. So for example, you might put on your to-do list, go shopping, right? But your next actions list might start with open the refrigerator and evaluate what we need, right? See the difference? It's really getting specific on what the next step is. So this has a couple of benefits, right? Because number one, it keeps you from like having to refocus and refocus and refocus every time that you need to get something done, right? You realize that you need to go shopping, you identify what the next step is, you write it down, and then it's done until you're actually ready to take that next action step, right? And then all the mental work is already done and you're just implementing. So next we have the waiting for list, okay? So I think of this as like things that I'm tracking, okay? So if I don't have the next action on something, but something that I need to keep track of and keep progress on, I will write that down, and I usually write down who's assigned the action as well as when I need to follow up with that person. Next is the projects list. So this one is for anything that you are actively taking on that has more than one next action step, okay? And you want to also make sure that the next action step for that project makes it to your next actions list so that you can be tracking it. And then fourth, we have our someday maybe list. Okay, so this is kind of like an idea parking garage. It's where you keep track of like your ideas, your dreams, the things that you may want to pursue someday, but that you're not actively going to pursue right now. Okay, so it just gets them out of your head and onto paper so that you can be able to track them, but not have them like continue to whirl around in your head. The book refers to organizing everything into these lists as creating your external brain. Okay, the idea being that if you have that recorded somewhere else, you free up mental space to be able to concentrate on other things. One caveat, if you aren't coming back and reviewing these lists regularly, like maybe like once a week or something, your brain is not going to trust the system. Okay, and if your brain doesn't trust the system, it's going to continue to remind you at inopportune times when you can't actually take action on these things, that these things need to be done. Okay, and that's going to leave you distracted and pretty much like you were before you implemented the system. The benefit of this external brain is that tasks are organized so that they're ready to be picked up whenever you're ready to take them on. Make time for rest. Have you ever been trying so hard to push a solution to a situation or a problem, but the harder you push, the worse it gets? When I was in college as an engineer, I had some, let's just say, difficult homework problems, right? And I remember sometimes I would just be sitting there just like trying so hard to just brute force the solution to this problem, okay? And I would just be pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it just wasn't going anywhere, banging my head, right? And I would have to go to class, or I would need to go do lunch or something. And when I would come back to the homework problem later, it just seemed so much easier and the solution just popped right up. Another example. Have you ever noticed that a lot of your best ideas come to you when you're in the shower? It's amazing what our brains can do when we are not distracted and when we just have time to just settle and breathe. Greg McEwen actually refers to this as protecting the asset. Sometimes rest is the most productive thing that we could do. I'm Shelly from Personal Improvement Academy. I support multi-passionate women who love their big dreams and the family they want to share it with. If you'd like to learn more, check out the next video on your screen. Thanks so much. Bye.